Less than 24 hours away from the 2019 NHL draft, and there is a ton of speculation and trade rumors swirling around a whole bunch of teams. We're talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Carolina Hurricanes possibly having discussions on a potential significant trade. We're also taking a look here at the Vegas Golden Knights and the Vancouver Canucks. We'll get into all the latest coming up next. Welcome back here to Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we're not far away here from the NHL draft here for 2019. There's all kinds of talk about trades and speculation going on here. GMs seem to be having all kinds of conversations, and we could see a very significant period of transactions here in the NHL. So certainly stay tuned. I'll do my best to keep you up to date as all the news breaks. But for right now, let's take a look at some of the key things that many NHL insiders have been discussing as some potential trades that are being looked at here. I first want to start with the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, as we know, Vegas has only completed 2 NHL seasons, but they already have themselves in a situation where they have a significant salary cap problem. As of right now, they're already over the cap for next season, and with all the word going around, the salary cap increase might not be as significant as we originally thought. That's going to have a major impact on a team like Vegas. Obviously, they already had a problem, and now that problem is going to get worse. We had belief that the cap was going to go up to around $83 million. Now there's talk it's more likely going to be around 81.5, maybe 82 at most. So for a team in a bad situation, like I said, it just made it worse here. Now, some of the information coming from NHL insiders indicate here that they are looking to maybe move out a fairly significant player, and that some of them feel it's likely going to be either Max Pacioretty or Paul Stastny. Of course, of all the pieces I could see the Vegas Golden Knights moving out, this is not players that I kind of expected to end up in this situation. Now, we had previously talked about defenseman Colin Miller, and I would not rule out the fact that he could still be moved. They have a significant enough cap problem that they likely will move more than one player. So Colin Miller, even though he hasn't been discussed a whole lot lately, he's got a decent amount of term on his contract at a good price tag. He can certainly be an offensive defenseman, play in the power play, and I do think he'd have some value to help out another team. So I do likely think here that he's likely does get moved along, but between Pacioretty and Stastny, that would be a pretty significant trade. That's a big piece off their second line. So I wonder who they would try to put in that position to replace them for next season. Hard to say exactly where they would go. They haven't been linked to any particular teams here as of yet. Both players are fairly new to the team, just completed their first season. Of course, Pacioretty was acquired from Montreal. You're heading into the beginning of this season. Stastny was signed, as a UFA. They both have a modified no trade, which I believe it's a 10-team no trade list. So there's still 20 other teams that they could be traded to. So there's fairly open that way. But of course, Pacioretty was just acquired, signed a $7 million fairly long-term extension. Stastny signed a 3-year deal. He's only 1 year into it. So obviously they got themselves in a bit of a mess here. When they signed Mark Stone to that mega contract, $9.5 million over 8 years with a full no move clause, I certainly figured it was more than likely here that something significant was going to have to get moved out, and I just didn't think it was going to be one of these two players. So obviously they both have a lot of experience. They've certainly had a pretty decent year last year. They both performed very well in the playoffs. They both had some injury problems last year, but during their time when they did play, I thought their numbers were pretty good. And by the end of the year, that Stastny, Pacioretty, Stone line was clicking pretty well. So it certainly is a bit of a surprise to hear that they're very likely to be moved. Of course, Wild Bill William Karlsson's one of their big-time RFAs that needs a new contract. So they're already over the cap without him being signed. They have some other players like Derek Englund, Pierre Bellemare, and others too that could need new contracts here if they decide to stay with the team. Vegas has big decisions to make here, and I guess we'll see if one of their top players gets shipped out. Leave me some mock trades down below, and let me know what you think would be a proper return for one of these players. Now, I once again want to talk about the Vancouver Canucks, and is it just me or are the Canucks linked to like every player in the NHL trade rumor mill? It's absolutely crazy the amount of speculation around this Canucks team right now, and the number of players that they've been linked to or interested in, according to a variety of NHL insiders and reporters. It's kind of crazy. But once again, there's another right shot defenseman who's been mentioned in trade rumors, and that's Tyson Barrie of the Colorado Avalanche. Of course, he's no stranger to the NHL rumor mill. There's been talk about Barrie being traded for probably going on 2 years. But as they saw youngster Cale Makar jump into their lineup and really look really awesome here at the end of the season in the playoffs, that just really heated up here the fact that they could probably do without him. They also consider the fact he's entering the final year of his contract, so he's a pending unrestricted free agent. And with all the other younger players that they're going to have to pay here, maybe they feel like cutting bait on Barrie and letting him go might be the wise move. I mean, besides Cale Makar, they also have Connor Timmins, who's another right shot defenseman as well. Of course, he missed all of last year with a concussion injury, so hopefully he's recovered and ready to roll, and indications are looking like he should be from what I've last seen. So if they can put Timmins in the lineup and you got Makar along with the other guys in their lineup now, they could maybe make some other moves as well to maybe acquire another defenseman. They could possibly end up drafting Bowen Byram at the draft here, depending on who the Blackhawks take with the number 3 pick. I believe Byram was either going to go number 3 or 4, more than likely. So if the Blackhawks decide to take like an Alex Turcotte or something and Byram's sitting there, the Avalanche could have themselves another top defenseman, and that's just going to increase the likelihood here that Barrie gets sent along. And of course, the Canucks are looking for a top 4 right shot defenseman, and he fits that bill. Of course, he's also from BC as well. I believe he's from the Victoria area, so obviously it's kind of like he's going home to his hometown team. So I'm sure he'd be happy there. He's an excellent addition. They certainly want an offensive-minded right shot D, and that's exactly what he is. You can usually bank on Barrie for around 50 points. Can play some decent minutes, play a power play quarterback. Imagine Barrie along with Quinn Hughes. Obviously, he's going to be in his full rookie season. He's a very dynamic puck-moving defenseman as well. That would really be a major upgrade for Vancouver, but they've been linked to so many other guys that's really hard to say. We've heard talks about Rasmus Ristolainen and Nikita Zaitsev, who I think they should both stay away from. They've talked about Tyler Myers in free agency, which still not sure that he'd be the right fit there as well. I think somebody's going to grossly overpay Tyler Myers. He's a good guy, good defenseman, but I just don't see him being worth what's being speculated out there, at least myself. I mean, they've been linked to PK Subban, but I'd rather see them go after a guy like Barrie. I think it makes more sense. A little bit more cost control here. Not such a crazy amount of money, $9 million. So we will see what happens here, but I expect the Vancouver Canucks to make a significant trade, likely at the draft. Obviously, they're the host team here, and many are expecting them to do something fairly significant. It would not be a complete shocker to see their first-round pick in play if a right deal comes along. Maybe the first-round pick could be what's needed to acquire Tyson Barrie, because there's only a few pieces that they're not trading, and that's obviously Pettersson and Besser, likely Horvat as well. Like, their top young forwards aren't going anywhere, so I'm not really sure what the Avalanche would want in return. I would think they're going to want something around the forward group is what they're going to be focusing on. If they get the Canucks' first overall selection here, which is the number 10 pick overall, they could grab themselves a pretty dynamic young forward, because there's enough of them in the first round that there will be a few left on the draft board. So that could land them that forward they're looking for. Just might have to wait a little while to get them in the lineup, but either way, it gets them a pretty solid player. And of course, the Avalanche are already picking at number 4 as well. So like I said, they may take Byram, they may take Turcotte. It really depends on what the team in front of them, the Blackhawks, do. So I guess we will see. The Avalanche could possibly walk away here with 2 top 10 selections, which would not be bad for them at all. I mean, they're already becoming a young, powerful team. You add 2 more top prospects in there, that's just a significant improvement for them. And it also would make a lot of sense for Vancouver. So let me know what your thoughts are on the Canucks acquiring Tyson Barrie. I think it'd be a terrific addition myself, depending on the price, of course. But I would be open myself, if I'm the Canucks, to maybe moving my first-round pick for Barrie. Even if you have to add something to the first-round pick, maybe a forward like a Goldobin, a Virtanen, something to that effect, I still think it's worth it and something they should consider doing. Now, next up, I want to take a look at another deal possibly being discussed between the Leafs and the Hurricanes. Now, these two teams are no strangers to each other. They apparently had a lot of talks and negotiations when William Nylander was having his contract hold out here with the Leafs, and those two teams were linked for a significant period of time that the Leafs might consider trading Nylander for one of the top blue liners from the Hurricanes, or maybe looking at a package deal going back and forth here. Obviously, the Hurricanes made it known that they were very interested in young William Nylander when the contract situation was going on, but of course that got resolved. He got signed, stayed in Toronto. The rest is history, but obviously the Hurricanes have a lot of defensemen. They're very likely to move one this summer, and of course the Leafs need that, so it makes sense for them to continue talking, maybe looking at other avenues here. But many NHL insiders feel like they might be discussing a deal that would possibly send a couple of pieces from the Leafs over to the Carolina Hurricanes in exchange for Brett Pesce. Now, I don't think Brett Pesce is a player that the Hurricanes are real eager to give up, but they could also be looking at Dougie Hamilton or Justin Falk. I don't see Falk being the guy that Toronto would want. I think it would either be Hamilton or Pesce myself. Those are the most likely candidates in my opinion here. And the package rumored to be going back to the Hurricanes was a group of forwards in Kasperi Kapanen and Connor Brown. So especially if you're a Maple Leaf fan, I'd love to know what your thoughts are on that. Of course, this is just what the NHL insiders were reporting. There's no guarantee that's the absolute exact trade that's been on the table here or how far along discussions have gone. But that's about what's being indicated here by NHL insiders, that these two teams are having heavy discussions and might be closing in on a trade that could happen possibly here at the draft. So we've also seen other remarks from Kyle Dubas today talking about Mitch Marner and his contract. He was asked about potential offer sheet, and he indicated that it's not an absolute given here that they would match an offer sheet. Now, personally, I think most people, myself included, believe Mitch Marner wants to be in Toronto. Mitch Marner's from Toronto. He grew up in the area. He grew up cheering for the Maple Leafs. He can get all kinds of endorsement deals. But the big thing here is he wants to get what he feels is fair and appropriate pay, looking for the respect that he feels is due here. After the Matthews and the Tavares contracts, he feels he's just as valuable and wants to be paid appropriately in his opinion. And maybe he's right, maybe he's wrong. That's a discussion for another time here. But many feel like Marner might go down the route of the offer sheet just to kind of force the Leafs' hand here to keep him, to match it and get the money that he feels he deserves. But Kyle Dubas comes out tonight and says, you know what, it's not a given that we would match an offer sheet on Mitch Marner. We would have to evaluate what the compensation would be and make an appropriate business decision, which certainly makes a lot of sense. Why wouldn't he evaluate the situation? But really, it seems like it's kind of becoming a little bit of a game of chicken in my opinion. Marner wants to be in Toronto, but he wants, Matthews' money. Dubas probably doesn't really feel he wants to give him that, but at the same time doesn't want to lose him. And it just seems like it's a negotiating tactic here and a little bit of a game of chicken to see who will blink first, just like the William Nylander situation, and see what they can get done here. But there's certainly going to be interesting times with the Leafs. I don't think it's a given that Marner gets signed before July 1st. I certainly don't think it's a given he gets traded either, and I don't think it's a given he gets an offer sheet. But all of the above are certainly possible, and it's going to be very interesting to see Kyle Dubas and company proceed here and try to get this done. Certainly a lot of work for the young GM, awkward situations, but we'll see how they make out and if they can retain the players that he said that they can and will get signed and remain in Toronto for many years to come. That is all your news and notes here for today. Like I said, the draft is less than 24 hours away, so certainly stay tuned. There's going to be more content coming later today as well. We'll certainly be discussing the draft and all the transactions that happen during the draft at great length here, so stay tuned for plenty more content coming. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you next time.